This is the Creality K1. If you don't know what it is really Creality's first true turnkey 3D printer, and it is their answer to the onslaught from Bamboo Labs with models such as the P1, the P1S, as well as the X1. Now, I've been testing this printer for about a month and a half now, and today I'm going to share with you my thoughts. Now, this is my review of this printer. It was sent to me by Creality for free. They have not, though, paid me to make this video. They have not seen this video before it's been published. And as always, my thoughts and experiences are entirely my own. Now, what we're going to do first of all is take a look at the printer and its features. We're then going to do a bit of a deep dive into the software, look at the UI, walk you through how the Creality print side of things works. We'll then talk a bit about the print results, how it actually behaves, and at the end, I will share with you my thoughts. The K1 is Creality's first true turnkey 3D printer. It is a Core XY design and it is fully enclosed, which means you can not only print the likes of PLA, but you can also do temperature sensitive filaments like ABS as well. It is based off Clipper and can print as fast as 600 millimeters a second and has accelerations as fast as 20,000 millimeters a second. That means it's capable of printing its pre-sliced benchy in as little as 13 minutes. Now, like many of the other recent very fast printers, whilst it does have these very high print speeds, general printing is a little bit slower, and Creality actually say that typical speeds are around 300 millimeters a second and travel speeds of 800 millimeters a second. However, that doesn't mean this printer isn't fast, and it is capable of printing up to 12 times faster than regular FDM models. It is fitted with an all-new dual-gear direct drive extruder capable of up to 32 millimeters squared a second flow rate. It has a ceramic heater capable of getting up to 200 degrees C in as little as 40 seconds, and it has a titanium alloy heat break hot end with a copper alloy nozzle capable of up to 300 degrees C. The K1 has a maximum build volume of 220 by 220 by 250, and the bed is fitted with a magnetic removable flexible sheet, allowing you to easily remove your prints once they're finished. The bed's maximum temperature is 100 degrees C, and it is fast heating, able to reach up to 60 degrees in as little as 180 seconds. To help cooling, this printer is fitted with an auxiliary parts cooling fan, and there's also a cabinet fan on the back to help regulate the internal temperature when printing temperature-sensitive filaments. The printer is controlled by its built-in 4.3-inch colour touchscreen. The software on this printer is based on Clipper, but it isn't open source at the moment, and we are hoping that Creality release this in the future. As it is based off Clipper, it has all of the usual functionality you would expect, such as auto bed leveling, input shaping, self-test, power loss recovery, as well as a filament runout sensor. It also has built-in USB as well as Wi-Fi connectivity, and whilst it doesn't come with a camera as standard, there is a pre-installed harness allowing you to plug in Creality's accessory camera that will give you the option of video and time-lapse of your prints. As it is a Core XY printer, you'll find there are 3 rods that run from the bottom to the top of the printer. You've then got the main carriage at the top, which consists of steel rods and belts, as well as your motors located in the back corner. One of the main benefits of the K1 is that it is a fully enclosed printer. The main frame is made of metal. We have a full glass front door, a plastic molded top cover that simply lifts off, semi-translucent plastic side panels, and then a plastic rear panel. On the back, you'll find the built-in filament holder as well as the main power switch. We then also have our runout sensor located here as well, with the tube going over the top to the main carriage at the top of the printer, all held in place with a chain. Now, when I received the printer, it came in this large wooden crate. I'm not exactly sure if your one would come like this. However, the review sample that I had did. It was quite a challenge to get it out, but once I did, it was then time to start getting everything unboxed and then start the setup process. Now, setting this printer up is fairly straightforward. There are some minor tasks you need to do. The first thing is to fit the LCD screen. This simply has a pushing connector and then it clips onto the front of the printer nice and easily. You then have 3 screws that you need to remove from the bed that hold it in place for transit. You should check the voltage setting is correct on the side of the printer for your specific region. Mine did come set correctly. Then it was simply a case of following the setup process where I had to select the region, set up my Wi-Fi, connect it to the Creality Cloud app. Although this isn't forced, you can skip it. Once that was done, allow the printer to do its self-test, where it would go through all of the main functions to check it was working correctly, including setting up the input shaping. Once this was done, I was then prompted to update the firmware. This actually happened twice. I did one update and then it offered me another. Once that was done, I then had to perform the calibrations again and the printer was ready to use. Next, we're going to take a look at what the UI is like on the printer. I'm going to talk about Creality Slicer and show you some of the nice functionality around the wireless printing that they have as well. The UI on this printer is actually very nice, very simple, although there are a few things I do think could be improved. Now, this is the home screen. Here it shows us the status of the printer, so currently nothing is happening. So you can see all of the temperatures down here are showing nothing at all. When you're in a print, you will see an image here of what you're printing if you've done it through the Creality Slicer, as I showed a little bit earlier, and I'll pop that up on the screen again for you to see. On the right hand side here, we've got our temperatures, so we can actually set the temperatures manually here as well. So if I tap on the extruder, you can see we can simply input a value and that will change. We can tap on the bed as well. This printer doesn't have a cavity heater, so we can't adjust that, but the option is there for it too. At the bottom, we then have the option to turn the internal light on and off. There is a LED light bar with this printer as standard, and then we've got the fan control, which allows us to set the model fan on the head, the side fan, which is our auxiliary fan, as well as our cavity fan, which is the back one. If we move down to the next screen, this is where we have the options for moving all the axes, so we can actually set the printer to go home. Again, we can set the temperatures down here as well, and we've got the amount of adjustment that we want it to move by, so 1 mil, 10 mil or 30 mil, and you've got the same there for Z. If I move across, you've got extrude and retract. Now this is basically your filament loading option, or your option for pushing filament through the printer. One of the annoyances in the menu is there's no dedicated load and unload feature on this printer. You've simply got extrude and retract. So to load your filament, you would set your nozzle temperature, then click extrude. It would heat up to that temperature and then begin to feed the filament. And if you wanted to remove the filament, you would simply use the retract. I would prefer though if there was a dedicated load and unload option like you do see on some other models, but this type of setup has become the trend on printers and I would like to see it changed. Next screen across is the cooling options again. This is how you get to it manually, or you can simply get to it from the home screen. The next screen down is our print screen. Now this is a history of what I've printed, as well as some of the prints that come with the printer as standard. So for instance, if I scroll down, you can see we can go down to the fast benchy that comes with the printer as standard. You can see it there. I have actually reset this once and cleared it all out and started again as a result of doing a few firmware updates. However, you can see that it does keep a nice history of the prints that you've done on the printer. You've then got the option for USB drive if you've got one plugged into the front port, and then you've got a history option that allows you just to go back to whatever you printed last. Moving over to the main settings screen here, we have the system options. Now I'm not going to go through all of these individually, but you've got the binding to the Creality Cloud, export log, your version, as well as your about screen. Moving across the top, you've got your network settings for your local Wi-Fi that the unit is picking up. And then you've got the camera options if you have a camera installed. I do currently have the Creality camera on this printer. You can then see the options for like the time lapses that we've already taken. You can see them there. We've simply got the last 3 shown. And then if I go back, you've got things like your camera settings. And then at the bottom, you've got your AI function. Now, I'm not really going to cover the AI stuff in this video. It is something that is in optimization. The right term for this would be beta. I have done a little bit of playing with it, but I haven't done enough to make any conclusions. Here and now in this review, I'm going to be ignoring this functionality, and it's something I will cover separately later on once Creality have it all dialed in. Finally, under our little robot, we've got our help screen, we've got our error history, as well as our update log. Now, as I mentioned, the K1 is based on Clipper, but it is a closed source fork of Clipper at this moment in time. That runs on a dual core 1.4 gig CPU, and then there is 8 gigs of onboard memory for storing your prints. You can upload the prints to this unit via either the USB port on the front via a memory stick, or you can send your prints wirelessly via the built-in Wi-Fi function. What's nice about the way Creality have set this up is that there are actually two modes that you can use via Wi-Fi. There is the cloud storage mode that uploads your print to the Creality cloud, and then that's downloaded to the printer via Wi-Fi. But you also have the local mode that allows you to simply send the print straight to the printer directly. There is no changing of settings on the printer, and there's no special modes to be able to do this. It is simply an option that you select at the end of slicing your print. Now, Creality do ship their own Creality slicer with the K1 that supports all of the wireless printing functionality. It is a slicer that is largely based off Cura and will be very familiar if you have ever used that before. Now, to demo the wireless printing, it's fairly straightforward. We simply take a print, place it on the bed and slice it, and then in the bottom corner you'll see that we get a few options. We have the ability for LAN printing, we have export local, which would be for uploading to an SD card, and then at the bottom we have the Creality cloud print. If I click on LAN printing, you can see it gives us the option to choose local area network, and then from here we can select what printer we want to send the file to. So we're going to select my K1, send G-code. That then will be sent directly to the printer, ready for me to print when I want to. Next to this, you also have one-click printing, which will send the file to the printer and automatically start the print process for you. Under the device screen here, you can also click on details for your printer, and it will show you all of the main controls and functionality. On the left, you can see we have all of the options for control of the print bed itself, as well as the hot end. We have our previous prints listed down the bottom here that are already uploaded onto the printer. And then we have our live webcam over on the right, as well as some status down the bottom here as well. As I mentioned, the real nice thing about the Creality slicer is that it is very familiar for anyone who has used Cura. It has all of the main controls and functionality you need to be able to get great results from the printer. And I do like the fact that you do have those two options. You do have the cloud print functionality. However, you can keep your files local if you want to by using the LAN printing. Now, alongside Creality Slicer on your PC, they also have their own app. This allows you to not only monitor the printer, but also do wireless printing via the Creality cloud. I'm not going to go too much into detail on that aspect of things, but I will give you a quick walkthrough on what the app allows you to do. When you open it up, you will be hit with an ad that you have to wait a few seconds to pass, and then it will take you to the home page. Now, there is this whole Creality community area, which I'm not going to dive into too much, but there's lots of prints, there's lots of adverts and all sorts here. You can see you've got For You, you've got Premium and all of this stuff. I'm going to talk about this side of things a bit more after I do the walkthrough of the app. Once you are in, though, and you don't want to go around this area here, you can go into Workbench, and here it will show our printer. Now, when I click on it, you will see that it will kick in. It will kick the camera in as well. I do have the Creality camera installed. Can take a few seconds to kick in. Sometimes it's fast, sometimes it's slow, but there you can see it has kicked in. Something I will say on the Creality camera is it doesn't have a great field of view for small items. So as you can see, the direction of it is pointed. So the print will start up here, and obviously as the bed comes down for larger prints, you'd be able to see it. But if you were printing smaller items, it doesn't give you a great view. Below this, we have the temperatures, so we can set the temp for the hot end. We can set the bed temperature as well, and it also tells us the print speed as well as the cavity temp. Then down here, we've got the options telling us around what's going on with this print. So how far through, how long it's taken, how much filament. We've got a pause and stop at the bottom. And then if we tap on settings below, we can bring up additional options like feed in and retraction, temps, again, setting the temperature of the other items. Then we got the other options like turning on and off the LED and adjusting the cooling fans. You can also go full screen on the camera as well. It's quite hard to show you it here in this setup, but you can see that we do have the visibility. The frame rate is actually quite good on the camera. It's just the angle that it's on isn't ideal for small prints. Now, this app has a huge amount of what they call the community elements to it with all of this stuff here. You've got like a gift shop up here, so you can click on that and it'll take you to things for buying directly from them. You've got things like the contest, which allows you to enter and potentially win things. And then you've got your free models, your products option that allows you to select printers. And whilst there is some good information in here, it does at times feel rather overloaded. Now, you can also trigger off prints that you've already sent to the printer previously via Creality Slicer. To do this, you simply go into the workbench, we click on our printer, and then we have the option at the top for our local file or our cloud slice. If I click on local file, you can see all of the prints that are currently stored on board that 8 GB of memory. We have the option at the top for USB drive as well, if we had one installed, and we would then simply choose the print we want to set off, click print, ignore the warning a minute because that's not relevant to this, click confirm, and then the print will begin. Now, you can also use the cloud print option. If I go under here and click on my uploads, you can see that a print that I sent just now via the slicer on my PC has appeared, and I could then choose to send that to the printer directly from here if I wanted to. What's also nice is you also have access to this via a web browser that allows you to view and control your Creality printer as well, giving you multiple options on how you upload prints, how you actually control the printer, and have visibility of your prints that are in progress. The app will also keep you updated with print notifications of what's going on as well. It'll give you status updates as well as tell you when your prints are complete. Unfortunately, the app also tends to spam you a little bit with marketing notifications as well. And when I say a little bit, I have received as many as 3 a day. There is no way in my tests I can find to turn off marketing compared to print status notifications. And as I've said on a number of occasions, I've received a push notification from Creality asking me to enter a competition, a push notification telling me there might be something interesting I might like on the Creality web service, and another nonsense notification that I didn't want. This for me is a real downside, and as you've seen in the app already, there is advertising placed all over it in various places, and I would love it if Creality made just a very simple basic app that gives just the print controls like we see from the likes of Bamboo. Now, out the box, the K1 doesn't come with a camera installed, although there is a pre-wired harness in place. You simply can get a camera from Creality that is available on offer right now as well, plug it in, and it is ready to go. Now, footage is all stored on board the printer, and to access this, you simply plug a USB memory stick into the front, and you can then offload that via the printer's menu. Now, footage from this camera is recorded at 15 frames a second at 720p. Overall, it does a decent job of giving you a view of the print status. However, the angle of the camera isn't ideal for smaller prints. They have got it set up that it works well with large prints as you see the bed come down, but for shorter prints, it does make viewing quite difficult, simply as a result of that being right at the top of its field of view. Next, it's time for me to talk about print results and print speeds, as well as the output that I have had from this printer. Now, I've been using it over the last few weeks, and overall, I've had no major problems. Now, before I show you some of the results from this printer, I want to talk about the auto bed leveling and the Z or the Z axis. Now, there is no manual Z on this printer. You don't have any calibrations. It is all done via the auto bed leveling. Now, I have found on mine that it is consistently a little bit too close. You can see here on a 0.2mm full bed print, you can see we've got marks here. You've got it down here as well. There's a ridge down here, and it's also up here on the sides. And I was noticing no matter what I did, it was always a little bit too close to the bed, even calibrating it hot, cold, and just letting it do its thing. Now, as I've said, there is no Z adjustment on the printer. However, there is one in the slicer, and you can do this for each of your settings. This was the second attempt to see if I could get it dialed in, and it was a lot better. We just had it catching a little bit here and here. And then on the third attempt, we basically had it perfect. It does a nice full bed print without any issues, but it does just seem that the Z-axis calibrates a little bit too close, and I have seen a few other people report on this as well. Hopefully, Creality will add a manual adjustment for this in the printer in the future. That way you wouldn't have to mess around with it in the slicer and you could simply do it on the fly. Now, just to demonstrate some prints that I've done on here, we have a couple of benchies. Now, these are actually two different time frames. This one is the very first print that I did on the printer. The reason I know this is it printed it quite dirty, and I don't really understand why. This seemed to come out of the extruder on the first print, and you can see that it's embedded into the bottom. If we come in closer, you can see the dirt in the bottom, and this is one that I did yesterday that you can see is completely clean. Now, it's really hard for me to show you these under the light in here in the studio. This is the Creality Fast PLA. This is the stuff that they supply with the printer. It's a white but sort of translucent white color. It's really hard for me to show you the detail under the light with this, but what I'll say is it's almost perfect. There's a few wisps from stringing here and there, and also you can't read on the back of the benchy the writing that is there, but the overall output is fairly good. If you really wanted to be completely critical, you would say yes, there are some detail areas that have not come through, but this was printed at 0.2mm, and it certainly wasn't printed to absolutely show how good the printer was. It's to demonstrate the kind of results that you can get, because remember, this benchy was done in 15 minutes. Now, I have also checked it with non-pre-sliced prints, and in fact, I even printed a TPU one. I always tend to do one of these, and overall, it's come out very nice. Little bit of stringing from my filament, but other than that, no complaints at all. And again, just on another one of the GoPro brackets that I tend to print just to check that it does what it says it should do. And you can see there, it absolutely has. No complaints with regards to how it performs on TPU. In fact, I've printed quite a bit of TPU on this printer, little bits for quad frames and stuff, and it's done a cracking job. Just to prove this benchy is TPU, I will give it a squeeze for you, just so you can see that that is the case. But it looks really nice, actually, and I'm really pleased that it is able to handle these soft prints without a problem. Now, I also printed one of these 3D printed test prints. Now, this is a little bit broke there because that was me handling it a little bit rough. If we take a look at the overhangs, first of all, it's done a decent job there. No problem there on that. And these come right up over the top, right up to 80 degrees. I'd say it's about 75 is where the limit of it starting to struggle, but it still achieved it without too many problems at all. If we take a look at the bridging tests, again, all of that looks good. No complaints there at all. The tubes look good. The only thing I will say is the holes are dimensionally good. However, they're not 100% round. If I just look at that, it's not perfect. There are issues there. The other thing just wanted to mention is it really struggled with the writing on the surface. You can see that it's just not come out there, not come out there. In fact, over here, it's loose. I can just peel it off with my finger. The surface writing really hasn't come out very well at all. That was me. Ignore that. No major complaints, but I think more work could be done. I think there's more that could be improved to try and get the results a little bit better, but it certainly isn't too bad considering that it is pretty much plug and play out the box. As part of my testing, I've also done a lithothane for my boy. I'm actually building him a lamp with Ronaldo on, and you can see there that the print has actually come out really, really well. This was where I actually first started to see the first layer issues with it catching when I did the first one of these. I've actually done 4 of these, but you can see just how well that has come out, especially with that white filament. Again, this is their own filament. You see the wisps of the hair up there. really good as well. We've done a Groco print. Now this, the light is really bouncing off this. Let me just adjust the light level so I can show you this a little bit better. I've turned the main lighting off above now, so hopefully you can see him a little bit better. The quality of the print is absolutely fantastic. Although it didn't finish 100%. You can see here, this hand is fine, but this hand didn't print. I did use tree supports with this model rather than solid supports, and it seems the tree supports from the Creality slicer didn't do a good enough job around this hand here. However, this one over here is absolutely fine, but I will say the overall quality is really, really nice. Where the tree supports were under the ears here, you can see just a little rough, exactly the same as what I saw on the bamboo, actually no difference at all. I think he looks really, really good. It's just a shame about that hand. I'm not sure we can blame the printer for that. That's more to do with the supports, because it's got a print from those supports up, and I probably need to do a bit more around that area to get a successful print. What I will say though is I didn't have to do that on the likes of the bamboo. I sliced it in exactly the same way and it printed out, but that's probably a failing of the slicer more than the printer itself. And finally, before we go back to them, I'll just show you this. This is an ABS print done on it. This was done with the Bamboo Lab ABS filament, in fact, on the Creality K1. And this is that carabiner. I've been printing this on all of the models. It's a really nice, easy test model, but it just gives me an indication of how well the ABS behaves. The only downside I'll say about ABS on this printer is there's no carbon filter, and it was more noticeable, quite a lot more noticeable, the ABS smell in the room printing on the Creality compared to say printing on the bamboo as a result of not having that carbon filter. Then, just to show you a couple of other things, I did one of the roses. This is in vase mode. Now, you can see a bit of ringing on this print. As a result of that, I actually did a ringing test print, which is this one here. Now, just to put these two back under the light, I wasn't sure how well that's going to come out in the edit, but I'll come back to it again just to give you another overview. You can again see the ringing a little bit more. It's not shocking, but it is visible. However, again, I'm really pleased with how the print came out. And again, you can see it on the ringing test there, that it does show the results. See it on the inside too. Now, with regards to print speeds, there's not a lot more I can say other than it does exactly what Creality says. They state up to 600 millimeters a second, but that is with their pre-sliced files. Zero complaints on this. It is like many of these other faster printers that we're all seeing hitting the market right now. It is up there with the likes of the P1S or the X1 Carbon. Again, able to deliver really nice results much quicker than we were used to seeing in the past. Now, one thing I just want to talk about on this printer before we move on to my final thoughts is noise. This printer is not quiet. Now, it is not really as a result of the printing, and it's more to do with the fans. There is a fan in the base to cool the main board. That isn't particularly quiet, and when the printer isn't doing anything, it certainly is audible. But the main cooling fans on this really are very, very loud. You've got that extruder fan as well as the auxiliary parts fan, and sometimes in a print you'll find that they're revving and making quite a lot of noise, and having this printer on in the background is absolutely going to be noticeable. I couldn't make a video like this whilst this printer was running. Now, just to try and give an indication of how loud this printer is, it's really hard to demonstrate this. I've not actually got a sound meter, but here I'm sitting just about arm's length from the K1. It's obviously behind me, and I'm talking at the microphone on top of the camera, and it'll just give you an indication of the kind of noise level that it is getting. I certainly couldn't record a video normally in this room with it running. If I do come in a little bit closer, you'll probably get my voice a bit louder now, but you'll still have that print sound in the background. It's currently not doing all of the revving and things that it does do depending on the speed changes that the hot end is doing, but what I wanted to just add more than anything was the fact of, if it is in an environment, there it is revving there, if it is in an environment where noise is going to be a problem, then this printer may not be the one for you. Okay, so it's time for me to share with you my thoughts on the K1. Now, overall, I think Creality have done a real good job of delivering their first true turnkey 3D printer. There is a lot to like here, especially when you look at it compared to, say, other models like the P1S from Bamboo. It is a fully enclosed printer. It has a real nice touchscreen and UI interface. The wireless printing option is just better than the Bamboo models as they are today, and it is based off Clipper, and whilst that might not be fully open source right now, that should see some more movement towards that in the future. And there is also a great modding community around that as well, which is going to mean you're going to have lots of options around doing some nice things with regards to the software on this printer. Now, Ian from the future here, at the point of me recording that last bit, Creality hadn't actually published this source for the printer. However, they now have. It isn't clear yet what benefits this is going to bring. People are still looking at this. There is a modding community building up around this printer and trying to get around some of the other stuff. However, Creality have put this out, so it is just something I wanted to highlight, that they have published what they said they were going to. The overall print results are very good, and I've got no complaints in that area at all, other than the fact that the Z height is a little bit close on my model. However, the K1 is not perfect. The overall build quality, in my opinion, does not feel as good as the likes of the P1 or the P1S from Bamboo Labs. Yes, those models are plastic too, but the interior on the K1 just doesn't feel as high quality. For instance, there's like cable ties and trunking on this compared to fully molded plastic pieces on the P1 and P1S. You don't have that carbon fiber rail system, and just the plastics around this printer do feel a little cheap. It also has a smaller build plate than the P1S, and it doesn't have that carbon filter on the cavity fan either, which means if you are going to print the likes of ABS, you're going to need to make sure the room is well ventilated. It is a shame that Creality don't bundle that webcam as standard, although they are doing a bit of a deal on that at the moment, and there isn't an AMS option available with this printer either. For me though, there are two major drawbacks to this printer compared to some of the others that I've used. One of them is the noise. It is a very loud printer in use. You do get a lot of noise from that main fan that is on the hot end. That tends to rev around a lot as well, and the overall fan noise from the printer in a print is loud, but it's also loud when it's sitting doing nothing as a result of that cooling fan in the base that keeps air moving over the main PCB. Some of these things could be improved, and that bottom fan could absolutely be replaced for the likes of a Noctua, but it is frustrating. That is something you need to do. I'm not saying for 1 minute the likes of the P1 or the X1 are totally silent, but the fans on this are definitely louder, especially when it's in a print. And for me, the other big frustration is the Creality app. The amount of spam that app does tend to send you at times is just unacceptable. Creality need to completely separate off their marketing material from print updates and give users the option of choosing what they want to receive. Getting messages for no good reason on entering competitions and looking at new things that have been uploaded really just distracts from what I expect the printer to be able to do. And in fact, it got to the stage that I was wanting to uninstall the app from my phone. Overall though, I do think Creality have done a good job on the K1, considering it is their first proper turnkey solution. About the only thing that remains in question for me is with regards to its reliability over time. We have seen some early issues with the K1s with regards to hot end damage and the extruder getting revised several times to improve its performance. We don't really have a lot of longevity information on this printer right now, whereas on the likes of the P1S or the P1, that is based off that P1 platform, which we have a bit of history on. This, though, is a brand new printer, but from what I've seen, overall, I think it's doing a good job. Now, if you're interested in getting a K1, it is available from Creality's website. There is a link to it in the description. Today, the K1 costs just over $539. As I mentioned though, that doesn't come with the camera, although you can get it for 99 cents as shown currently here on the website, but that deal won't be available forever. So the final thing you're probably wondering is, should I buy the K1 from Creality or the P1S from Bambu Labs? Now, whilst this sounds quite a simple question, the reality is it is a complex decision because there are a lot of differences here. This is a smaller printer, it doesn't have all of the bells and whistles of the P1S, but it also costs less as well. Yes, the P1S includes a bigger build plate, carbon filter and the webcam as standard. However, this comes in much cheaper right now at $540 compared to $699 on the Bambu. You can get the camera for $1, and overall you're getting a printer that you do also have the ability to run open source software on. Now Creality have made that available. There is no question the Bambu is a phenomenal printer. Both can print pretty much at the same speed. Both have very similar print quality when they are working at their best. But what I would say is, in my opinion, the Bambu just works a little bit better out the box. The Bambu is just a higher quality printer overall, and it's just a bit of a better experience overall as well with regards to their tight integration of hardware and software. However, that also comes with some downsides. The Creality wireless printing is much better than you have on the Bambus. Yes, they have an offline mode. You've got to change the mode on that and you lose the app functionality. Creality allow you to send your prints wirelessly without having to change modes, but whilst it is still on your local network. This printer has a much better display than the P1. And whilst it doesn't have all of the same quality, it definitely is as capable when it's working at its best. For me though, the real question is this printer going to be as good in 12 months time as it is today? And reality is, for now, we simply don't know. This is a new market for Creality. They are used to making printers that people can mod and improve and not worry too much about delivering a very complete out-the-box solution. There is no question they've done a really good job and upped their game here, but it isn't at Bambu Labs level yet. And the thing to really decide is that extra $160 worth it for the additional quality that you get on the P1S with regards to the build of the printer and the integration with their software and systems? I think both are very, very good. What I will though say is this: I think the Bambu Lab is worth the extra $160. So the question then becomes, do you have that $160 and are you happy with some of the downsides that the Bambu may bring? Obviously, if you're not, then the K1 is definitely worth a look. And it is also worth mentioning that there is the K1 Max as well, although that has also had a difficult birth. There has been extruder problems. There has been some other issues as well. And I haven't used that printer myself, so I can't comment on if you should consider it or not. It isn't just a larger version of this. It is a slightly different printer in many ways, and it has different issues as a result of that. Where Creality tends to let itself down here is with the detail on the build quality, the detail on the app in the sense of not spamming you with all of this nonsense, and the detail on some of the overall quality of manufacture and production. There has been some issues with this printer. Some of them I haven't touched on in this video. There has been people mentioning about the belts rubbing cables underneath. There's been problems with the extruders, the hot ends, and whilst without doubt Bambu have had their issues as well, they are through that period right now. You can safely buy a P1S today knowing that we've had the P1P out for months, and what you're getting is a solid stable platform that just has some additions, whereas this is an entirely new platform that Creality are still continuing to improve and develop. For me, in the end, it really does come down to money. I don't think you'd be disappointed with either printer with regards to the print quality or the speed. It then comes down to what you're looking for, how important this screen is for you compared to what you get on the P1P and the P1S, how important the improved wireless functionality is on this compared to the P1P and P1S, but how important that larger bed is on the P1P and P1S, or how important that simply just overall higher quality feel that you do get on the P1P and P1S is. They are both very good printers. It comes down to what you're looking for, and I can't answer that question for you, but what I can say is if you've only got a budget of $540, then I don't think you'll be disappointed with the K1, but if you can stretch to $699, I don't think you'd be disappointed with the P1S either. Now, if you're interested in seeing my P1S review, there will be a link to that in the description of this video. I want to say a big thank you to Creality for sending this one over. As I've said, it was sent to me for free. However, as I've said, they haven't seen this video before it's been published, and as always, my thoughts are entirely my own. I'm also really interested in knowing what you think. Please do let me know in the comment section. Let me know what you think. If you've got any questions, put them there too. And finally, I just want to say if you have found this video useful, please do consider giving it a like. If you're new here, please do subscribe. And finally, if you'd like to support the channel, there is also a link to Patreon in the description. I want to say a massive thank you to all of my Patreons. I would not be able to keep making content on this channel without their support. Anyway, that's it from me. Stay safe. I'll speak to you soon.